or they are managing to hear us. I will present the agenda for the day, so just so you are aware what goodies we have prepared for you, and also the speakers that we've got today. Just a quick run through the agenda we have. Of course, we will introduce the keynote speaker in just a couple more minutes. And then the first topic of the event is Rethinking Agile for Real Value, Successful Examples of Agile Transformation Shaping Organizational Culture. And here we will have three speakers, so stay tuned to hear their stories and lessons learned that they want to share with you. And then I think the most awaited, or at least you kept on asking for it, is the agility in the age of AI, experimenting with AI tools for agile teams. And here also we will have three speakers covering AI and agility. And then we will have a first discussion, a free discussion. It is a fireside on the roles of of roles in Agile and different types of leadership and their stories, how they manage teams across different organizations and also different time zones. It will be Dan and Benjamin who will share with this experience with you in the fireside discussion. There will be a short break after that. So between 1:50 and 2 p.m., there will be a 10 minutes break. So you can still plan your day. And then we will come back and discuss about Agile in sustainability and how sustainability is integrating in Agile environments. And then we will have a panel discussion, a very interesting panel discussion about women voice in Agile. And I hope you will stay to actually hear and listen what these four wonderful ladies that are working in Agile environments from different industry, they want to share with you and how to empower women. Then we all know that resistance to change is a fact in all organizations, especially when you try to implement Agile. So we will have this very interesting theme covered by four speakers. So stay tuned to actually understand how you can implement Agile and overcome the resistance. And then we will close up on the idea that the future is bright, but there will be still transformation that we need to do. What kind of new knowledge, what kind of new roles we can cover. So what is in the future for us actually as project management professionals in Agile or for Agile practitioners as well. So that is the agenda. And now I will introduce to you the keynote speaker that we have. We are so glad that Lenka Pincot, she accepted to join us here and to share from her experience with us. She is PMI Chief of Staff to the CEO. She's also an executive leader, and she is the key driving force behind the Agile Alliance, also being part of the board of directors. Over the years, she has accumulated extensive experience in Agile transformation and implementations for large organizations in Europe. And on top of everything else, she is leading cross-functional teams and spearheading critical projects for PMI, always ensuring that they are hitting their strategic targets and delivering impactful results. In her work with the Project Management Institute, she's covering a wide variety of transformations, reaching out to different stakeholders and executing the strategies in line with the culture of innovation and excellence across all levels. So now today, Lenka will share from her experience with you, and also she will introduce the manifesto for enterprise agility, which is a key research done by PMI under her leadership. And without further ado, please, Lenka, welcome. We welcome you here, and we are so happy that you join us today. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So, hi. First, a tech check. So, do you hear me? I'm experimenting with a new microphone. All good. Okay, perfect. So, yes. Hi, everyone from sunny Paris. Exceptionally, we have sun out there. It was raining for the past couple of days. So, I don't know what's the weather, what's the sun in other parts of Europe. I hope that you have also some pleasant Saturday morning. And I'm really happy to be here with you today, because I think dedicating your Saturday for your learning and upskilling and education is really great. So as it was already said with this really wonderful intro, I was like, oh my gosh, you made me sound like a total impossible person in terms of like everything that is happening in my life. But yeah, most of it is actually correct. I am chief of staff to the CEO at PMI and executive leader for PMI's thought leadership team. That's the team that is essentially standing behind all the research and reports, and as we call it, innovation of the profession. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you will always see me posting a lot about our new reports, our new findings, research, and everything that we do. I also sit on the board of Agile Alliance. You probably know that we welcomed Agile Alliance into PMI family in January last year. And since that, I'm supporting the essentially unifying the profession project and Agile professionals to get closer and kind of like back together. So I am really excited to see this event, this conference, which is about Agile and agility and is organized by PMI chapters. So let me try to put my slide deck on the screen, how everything will work. So hold on. So now you see my slide deck, right? You do? Okay, someone please give me a thumb up. Good, okay, perfect. All right. So we will talk today about enterprise agility and the new manifesto we released. And it was released, the new manifesto for enterprise agility was released 25 years from the release of the first manifesto that, Manifesto for Agile Software Development. And it's a fun fact, 25 years ago, I was actually studying software engineering. I'm a software engineer by my education. And that's when I first learned about agile approaches. And way later, before I joined PMI, which is roughly around 3 years ago, I worked for a couple of years as agile transformation leader in the financial industry. So I really love this conference, everything about agile. And as I mentioned, I also really, really appreciate the fact that this conference is put together by 15 chapters and that you really support this learning and discussion about agility. So let me first start with a little bit of research and data to ground the discussion. What you see here on the screen, these are a few data points from the research that we did in December last year, where we surveyed CEOs only. So this is not a voice of the project management profession, this is voice of CEOs. So what we found is really striking. So vast majority of CEOs, 93%, they say that they must rethink or challenge assumptions about their operating models or business approaches at least 5 years. And around 65%, they say they have to do it every 2 years. And these data, they send a very clear message that transformations and internal reinventions became the norm for most organizations. Our research also shows that the biggest drivers today behind the situation is AI and automation in 72% actually. We were also interested in what are the CEOs' biggest challenges of these days. And so the first one that they quoted was the challenge to close the strategy execution gap. And the second challenge right behind it was a challenge of continuously upgrading talent to be future ready. And as you can see, project professionals, they play a crucial role on addressing both of these challenges. So the first one, that's super clear because projects, that's the connecting tissue between strategy and execution. And we will talk about just in a little bit later in a few minutes, how these CEO challenges translate in the project management discipline itself. The second challenge impacts all professionals, all knowledge workers, because that's about developing our own personal change readiness and future readiness. It's about our ability to learn fast, develop our business acumen, and talk the language of our key stakeholders, whether the stakeholders are coming from the business side, C-suite, or from the expert sides. Because this challenge and opportunity that we face today is not that organizations would not know how to run projects or how to start new products and all of that. The problem is that our environment is changing very fast, and that is a clear imperative for creating this internal adaptability. So I have few more data points to share to frame the discussion. So what you see here, so this is not PMI research, this is research that is done by other organizations that have authority in the space. So like PwC, World Economic Forum, Microsoft, LinkedIn, etc. So what we see also on other data, on these data points, that business models, or how do I essentially connect with my customers, where do I operate? So this whole concept is shifting also very fast. So by research by PwC, almost 4 out of 10 CEOs have entered a completely new sector in the past 5 years. And for many of them, these new moves already represent more than 20% of their revenue. So this is that reinvention in action. What's the impact that it creates? At the same time, the environment, especially on the business side and a global level, still stays very volatile. We see different trade dynamics, geopolitical situations, changes in regulations, and of course, we all witness this explosive progress of AI. And that's creating constant change and uncertainty. So the environment in which we operate is not stabilizing, it keeps evolving. And when organizations respond to that pressure, they often move fast, but sometimes too fast, which we also probably experience in our projects. So, for example, I picked up the data point here from IBM study that many CEOs, they plan to double their AI investments within the next 2 years, but half of them already admit that the rush to implement AI has created fragmented and disconnected technology across the enterprise, which means another reality is impacting people who work in this delivery product space. They feel the pressure of that. So another study by Microsoft, they came up with something really interesting, and it's scary if you think about it. They say that 80% of employees and leaders say they simply do not have enough time or energy to do their work effectively. So organizations are asking teams to transform, innovate, and deliver, but all at the same time. And that's also changing what leadership looks like. So the new generation of leaders is really moving away from what we call this typical like rigid hierarchies. What they want to have is co-creation, shared accountability, and long-term impact. And that is a huge transformation in culture and the way organizations are built on its own. And then last thing that I want to talk about, what is also changing, is how organizations hire these days. So these data points that you see here, these are from LinkedIn. So nearly 40% of C-suite leaders, when they are hiring new talent, they prioritize adaptability and agility when they look at who to hire. And we also know from LinkedIn previously published study that by 2030, they expect that about 70% of skills used in most jobs these days will change. So that's why developing our own ability to learn fast is very essential. So when you look at it, take a step back, then we start seeing a pattern. We see that organizations are trying to reinvent themselves, innovate. They have to navigate that volatility. They have to integrate new technologies and transform how people work. All of that at the same time. So then what it means for us. What it means for us is essentially this, that the environment in which we operate, and again, you hear me see project and stuff, but what I mean like in a broader sense, like something, initiative, change, whether you deliver it as a project, you call it change, whatever that is, that initiative that we are all need to lead and manage. So we see that this environment in which we operate is shifting from complicated to complex. And by the way, we also did a new research on complex environment. I will be talking about it during the opening session for PM Expo event that will happen at the end of March if you want to know something more about this shift from complicated to complex. So we see that professionals from our profession, they operate at this intersection of technology, changing customer expectations, regulations, new competitive pressure. And all of these factors are not happening in isolation. It's not only one thing. It's about integrating multiple transformation themes at once: digital transformation, AI adoption, sustainability initiatives, entering new business territories. And at the same time, our leaders, C-suite CEOs, they have to navigate something that some organizations, researchers, they call it a polycrisis environment, which means you don't have only one black swan, one major event that is changing, disrupting, but you have multiple of them, whether it's coming from changes in economical environment, technology, disruptions, and all of that. So what it means for organizations is that change, that transformation is no longer a moment, episode, but it becomes continuous. We could say perpetual. And that means that we have to rethink what is the value, what is the impact that organizations need to achieve from all these change initiatives, new projects, products, whatever what we are delivering. That we see that the value that we can bring as professionals, it comes from staying anchored in the long-term purpose of the organization, but we are also expected to adapt the path that we use, that we follow to deliver that value. So we really expected to build that ability to sense changes early, to be able to respond quickly, adjust, and continuously upgrade and challenge how we work with learning loops, even change like how we approach learning, how we approach the whole thing about how can we be adaptive and how can we make sure that whatever we are delivering is not only following the plan, but essentially changing projects, product development, all of that into learning mechanisms. So that overall, when we scale this up, this is essentially what we call enterprise agility. And that is also why the conversation about enterprise agility has become so important, because agility today is not at all about how teams run sprints. It's about how the entire organization can sense change, make decisions, and adapt at speed. And that's a challenge, but is also a huge opportunity. And I believe that's a reason why many of you are here today. That's why I love this conference so much. But when we talk about agility, I really strongly believe that we need to challenge ourselves and we need to rethink how we think about agility and agile on its own. So that was one of the reasons why we at PMI and Agile Alliance started to work on that topic of enterprise agility, and we actually put together that new manifesto for enterprise agility, and we published it, I think now it's 2 weeks ago, on March 3rd. But before I get to that, I wanted to show you something else just to document my point. So, you know, when we published the manifesto, of course, it caused some chatter on social media. People started to talk about it, and then a person, and by the way, I don't know, maybe he's even on this conference, I don't know, but Scott Graffius, he published this. So it's on his LinkedIn profile. You can go there, you can read it. He went through all the sources, resources about the evolution of agility itself, and he put together this timeline. So actually, frankly, the timeline, it goes back to 1957 to IBM. But I had to cut off the picture a little bit, otherwise it would not be readable. It would not fit in my slide deck. But so I'm starting in 1980, but his original timeline starts at 1957. However, just notice this. So look at this lively period of development of agile approaches between 1980 to 2010. So you see like a lot of things here, right? A lot of milestones, a lot of innovation, a lot of things until 2010, right? Now, somewhere in the middle, you see at 2001 publication of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development, which typically people call the Agile Manifesto. And then in this timeline, you see this 16-year gap, a vacuum, essentially, until 2026, when we have created and released the Manifesto for Enterprise Agility. So I don't know what you think about it, but for me, this is like very telling, right? Because you can't be successful with anything in the current world that is undergoing a lot of changes if you don't evolve and reinvent yourself. So this gap of 16 years, that's a call for action for anyone who is in the agile space and think about agility. And again, as I mentioned, that's also one of the reasons why we started to work on that new manifesto, because at PMI, we strongly believe in agile values and principles, mindset, and the need for agility as a capability. But we also see that something has to change. The discussion really has to expand beyond software development towards the enterprise level. And because when we talk about enterprise level, that's why we need to look at enterprise agility through C-suite lens, through CEO lens, because on the enterprise level, agility serves the needs of the CEO so that they can react and steer their organization through all the challenges that I was talking just a minute ago. So when we started to work on this topic, we actually started with this research. So this one is from June, July 2025, so like a half a year ago. So this was also C-suite research. And we tried to understand first, what is the C-suite appetite for enterprise agility and how they see that. So their message was very clear, as you see on this slide. So for them, enterprise agility is about rapidly adapting to change without losing strategic focus, and about having the capability to sense and respond to evolving market, customer, or technology. I don't have the number here, but we also saw that majority of C-suite was saying that enterprise agility is very important for them, but they also, like smaller portion of them, I think around 30%, they didn't really see it implemented that much. So we see that the challenge that organizations face today is not delivering projects or change faster. That's not it. It's really how you learn how to adapt as an enterprise. So it's all about understanding what is happening, where I need to change faster. And then if I make a decision, how do I make that decision faster? And how do I align teams and outcomes around the purpose? How do I move forward in a way that is cohesive? And then on that practical side, on the ground, is also how do I integrate all these solutions and responses to the change? And at the same time, I avoid creating a new enterprise debt, something that stays in the organization and I have to deal with that later. So over the past 6 months, we work with leaders around the world to explore the topic of enterprise agility and what it means, enterprise agility, when it's applied, obviously not only to teams, but on that level of entire organization. So the Manifesto for Enterprise Agility, it was co-created with CEOs, C-suite, senior practitioners, and global thought leaders. It's backed by global research, some of that I showed you here. And we conducted a lot of interviews with CEOs and C-suite leaders. Some of them will be published soon on our website on projectmanagement.com, and some of that will come a little bit later. But as a team, as PMI and Agile Alliance team, we will keep working on the topic. And what we have in our plan right now is something that we call closing the gap. So essentially, how we translate these principles and values of enterprise agility into practitioners' actionable insight. So let's start with the foundation of enterprise agility. So here's a definition that we landed after so many discussions with so many different people, because believe me, everyone has very distinct opinion how to call it, but this is where we landed. So we look at enterprise agility as the organization's capacity to adapt at scale without losing coherence, to decide quickly, redirect resources deliberately, and keep strategy actionable under real-world pressure. So what you see from here, that enterprise agility, at least in our understanding, is not at all a framework. It's not a methodology, and it's certainly not a set of ceremonies and rituals. It's a strategic capability of an entire organization that you need to build and maintain and strengthen it along the, as you navigate your environment. So it's a capability that allows organizations to respond to change without losing that strategic direction. Because when you think about agility at scale, it's not about movement, fast movement. It's really about maintaining stability of that organization in the purpose, while you have the ability to adapt the path so that you can move forward with intention. And that intention, following that purpose, that's very important. So when we analyze the voices of CEOs, suddenly we started to emerging 4 key values of enterprise agility. So first one, that's about having clear purpose, which is realized through adaptive plans. So it's really about rallying around that purpose and adjusting along the way, instead of over planning and maintaining the illusion of control, that you can control your environment. Because if you operate in fast changing environment, you need adaptability and resilience. You need frequent planning and replanning, adjustment. You need to know where you're headed and approach all the rest with an open mind and curiosity. The second value, that's about shared enterprise outcomes over functional optimization. By the way, this value is always so interesting for me, because what you see here, this is how CEOs see that. So what they're saying is that you really need to prioritize the organization instead of trying to optimize your kingdom. But I don't know if some of you read our other research on project success. You can raise your hand if you did, or comment in the chat. We'll be very, very happy to hear it. But when we research project success and we research the impact of adopting MORE, we also ask the question, what motivates project professionals who are associated with adoption of MORE and higher project success? And very interestingly, when you have project professionals who focus primarily on themselves and development of their career or on their individual project success, they are less successful. They have lower performance compared to project professionals who prioritize the objective of the entire organization. And so why I love it so much? Because for me, I translated very clearly that enterprise agility and success comes from a true enterprise teamwork. So really achieving that state, which is a combination of leadership and also how we think about ourselves, when you see yourself as part of the team. So you don't show up at work just like, hey, I'm here, I do my stuff, and then I go home. But it's really like, what are we all trying to achieve here together with my colleagues? And then how to make the best out of all of our efforts and energy that we put into it. Right. So third value, that's about continuous reinvention over preservation. That's really about not sitting still. It's about challenging yourself, challenging the established operating models, and essentially fighting that organization inertia. Not easy. But some CEOs, they told us in these interviews that the way they see it is that if you don't reinvent yourself, someone else will do that. By the way, this is European event. So one European CEO from the Czech Republic, he essentially said that he knows that every day there is someone literally sitting in their garage and trying to disrupt their business, being better than they are, right? And that's what CEOs are facing, this constant competitive pressure. And then the last one, the last value of enterprise agility, that's really about putting people in the center of the change. I know that we are these days so surrounded by technology, AI, automation, all of that. But what should really matter for us, how do we work with people and how do we acknowledge that people has to be in the center of the change? So, just yesterday I was meeting some people. We are preparing for a panel discussion next week in Austin, in Texas, at Southeast Southwest Festival, and also talking about enterprise agility. And one of them, they had like very interesting comment, and they said with AI, now it empowered people a lot. A lot of people now can invent, reinvent, do a lot of stuff. But if they don't think through human-centric change and put people in the middle of that change, are we even creating something that makes sense for people? Is anyone going to use it? So, sometimes we have this challenge that how do we move cohesively forward? Is it like, how do we cascade all the information and all of that? So how do we, make all these decisions trickle down so that everybody can be aligned around the same purpose? But with AI, the challenge is maybe now shifting. How do we make people think before they quickly act with all these empowerment through all these tools? It's like, let me develop something, let me do something, so that they don't create more enterprise that due to the lack of integration of all these solutions and essentially talking together. So I don't know what's the time, how much time I still have, but I wanted to show you these principles of enterprise agility. I will probably not go one by one because I have a feeling that I will be over time, and I actually didn't check my watch, so my watch is not showing the right time, so sorry for that. But I just wanted to show you this, and I hope that you will read the Manifesto of Enterprise Agility. So the principles that are here that are reflecting something really very important, and that is that enterprise agility is not at all about abandoning discipline and, indulging all the chaos, like not at all. It's really about upgrading how organizations coordinate purpose, value creation, and learning. These principles in the manifesto are structured in 3 groups around leadership behaviors, organizational design, and around execution. The thing is that if you want to achieve enterprise agility, it's not just through team delivery practices, but it requires leaders, structures, and execution models to evolve together. So for instance, just, let me pick up just a few of them. So the one that I like is, for instance, the second principle in that leadership layer, that if you want to achieve agility on enterprise level, we really need leaders that expand that agility beyond organizational boundaries towards their partners and other subjects in their ecosystem, such as customers, suppliers, regulatory partners, and communities. Because with enterprise agility, we need to expand the thinking beyond the enterprise itself. Organizations must collaborate effectively across their networks, maintain close connection with their partners, customers, communities, and other stakeholders. The third principle that you see here, that's really about embracing technology and the fact that talent, information, knowledge is distributed in organizations. It doesn't sit on the top, but it sits with teams that, again, communicate with your customers. So we can go across all of these, but I will probably let you read them. But I wanted to close with this. So what does it mean for us, for professionals who are here at organizations, and helping them navigate that environment and helping them to be successful with all those changes? So, but we see that all these professionals, whether regardless of the way of working, whether it's more in the project side or agile side or somewhere in the middle, so increasingly they are becoming integrators of change and orchestrators in this complex environment, because they are supposed to help organizations align strategy with execution, to coordinate across multiple teams and stakeholders, navigate that uncertainty, and align with customers and outcomes that we need to achieve rather than focusing just on outputs. So in many ways, the way you set up your delivery teams, functions, methods, practices that you have, you are all becoming architects of that adaptability of organizations. And most importantly, you all help organizations to learn while executing. And this ability to learn while executing and then leverage that learning for future changes, this is so important because, as I mentioned, a lot of our operations is currently in a world that is complex, not complicated. And in complex world, we need a lot of sensing and understanding how all these components interact with each other. It's not just about expertise. It's really about that ability to sense and understand and test and learn along the way. So what I always say, everyone these days, it's if you want to be successful in this environment and support enterprise agility of organizations, you really need to work on your own business acumen to understand what are the pressures for these changes, where is it coming from, how is it impacting organizations, and then how organizations need to organize internally to be able to deal with that pressure. It's also a lot about our own collaboration and facilitation skills, because again, talent gets distributed. It doesn't sit with one person. It sits across many different teams, and we need to bring all this information and talent together. And we need to be more comfortable with ambiguity, with like not knowing how to do things exactly. Experimentation, iteration, and again, learning. So if you want to support agility of our organizations, good place to start is with us as individuals and think how we can increase our own change readiness and resilience so that we can be good partners to all of these stakeholders. So, that's why, again, as I said at the very beginning, I'm happy to be part of this conference because you are a great community and you are going to have exactly these conversations today. Because if you remember that slide that I showed, that history of Agile, you see it was very lively this 16 years ago, a lot of things, because there was a community, people talked, people shared, people were reinventing. And then we had some pause. I don't know why specifically, right? But maybe it's a good time to restart this lively conversation, bring people together. And I think that conference like this is doing exactly that. So before you get to all other sessions, let me leave you with one final thought. So we often talk about that fast pace of change, disruption, uncertainty, but there is also another way to look at this moment in time. We are living in a period of time where the ability to create change is really amazing. We have so many new opportunities and openings across many industries. And at the center of all of it, people like you, so who can work with that change and make something great out of all of that. So it's on us to learn and support our organizations with navigating complexity and delivering all these meaningful outcomes across that ecosystem. Because if we want to be successful in the future, we have to increase our own ability to adapt faster than the change is evolving itself, so that we can always be one step or two steps ahead of it. And that's why enterprise agility matters, because it's connecting all these principles together. So I hope that you will have a great conference, that you will have a lot of conversations